Fame or fellowship ಇಲ್ಲ union.
ഓക്കെ, ഇനി ലാല് ഇച്ചിരി റെസ്റ്റ് കൊടുക്കും.
Good evening, Dr. Annie. Good evening. Good evening, ma'am. Geeta
Good
ma'am.
evening, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Dr. Annie.
Good evening.
Hello, ma'am.
Okay, good evening, sir.
Hello, good evening.
Hello, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am. How are you?
Evening. Fine.
So after a long time, we are seeing virtually, meeting virtually. So what is this? Actually, is this a regular program, ma'am, or regular program of your academic staff college?
It is actually we do for 3 levels.
Okay.
So yeah, entry level, middle level, and senior level. We started now with the entry level.
Good. It's a nice initiative, ma'am. Very good initiative. Because otherwise we have to fully depend on the regional centers or nodal center, no, for revised basic course. This is a good opportunity.
Dr. Annie,
Yes, madam.
ready?
But VCs are not attended. Our PVCs are is there.
Okay.
Jane, sir?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. മോൻ സാറിനെ വിളിച്ചിരുന്നോ?
ഞാൻ വിളിച്ചിരുന്നു, sir. Apo he said he will join towards the end.
Okay.
He is traveling. So
Okay, okay.
so can we start, sir, or should we wait 2 minutes?
If we are expecting more, okay, it's okay.
Yes, sir. We are expecting more. I think more than 500 registrations are there now. And we will start by 7 p.m. 1 minute
Okay.
more there.
Okay, right.
Okay, sir. Shall we start, sir? Vijay, sir.
Okay, right.
Okay. A very good evening to all of you. Academic Staff College is organizing so many programs for updating the knowledge of all the faculties of affiliated colleges coming under Kerala University of Health Sciences. Today, we are commencing a refresher program on medical education technology for the faculty of all 7 streams with 0 to 5 years experience, that is entry level. This is scheduled for 6 days, finishing on 15th November, and the time is from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., which is convenient for all clinical and non-clinical faculties. Now, we shall start with the inaugural session. I invite Professor Dr. Geeta Govindaraj, Director in charge of Academic Staff College, to deliver the welcome address. Over to you, ma'am, please.
Respected Pro Vice Chancellor, Professor C.P. Vijayan, all the deans of the respective faculties, our senior members who are with us, and a special welcome to Madam Dr. Annie Matthew, and all the faculties who have taken their time and effort to be with us today. And we hope that you would have a great experience of refreshing all your concepts in medical education as we go along over the next 6 days. a very special welcome to today's guest speaker, Professor Zaya Pragasarajan, who is Professor and Head of the NTTC at JIPMER, Puducherry. He has been instrumental in leading the way in medical education in the region, has several publications to his credit, and we'll have a formal introduction of the speaker soon. I also welcome each and every one who have taken pains to make this a reality, including Mrs. Shalu and Dr. Anoop, who has also helped in this endeavor. We know that we are taking the plunge to competency-based medical education, and what we expect is over the next few years, we will be having a hybrid curriculum, and we all need to update our knowledge and skills. So in the next 6 days, we will be focusing on the skills for an entry-level faculty, mainly dealing with classroom management, the concepts of medical education, and also a few facets of evaluation, especially in the CBME scenario. So I hope everyone enjoys this session and all the sessions to come. Thank you. Welcome all once again.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the knowledgeable, fruitful welcome address. As our VC is not ended, I invite Dr. Professor C.P. Vijayan to give the introduction and to felicitate in this program.
Dr. Zaya Pragasarajan, Professor and Head, Department of Medical Education, JIPMER, Puducherry. Dr. Geeta Govindaraj, Professor in charge of Academic Staff College of Kerala University of Health Sciences. Dr. Annie Matthew, who is the coordinator of this program. Then my co-workers in the university, respected faculty members, and my dear friends. As mentioned here, we are going to have a 6-day long program for the entry-level teachers in our university, cutting across all the disciplines. Why should we have such a program? Because we are all teachers, completed our post-graduation in the respective fields and started teaching students. But the concept of teaching and learning has changed over the time. While we were students, especially the undergraduate students, the teaching was mainly teacher-centered. We used to admire excellent teachers after their lecture or a practical session or a small group discussion, etc. But always importance was on the teacher. But now the concept has changed. It is the learning process that is given more importance, or the learner is given the thrust. So what you should, somebody may ask, what is learning? Learning process is something which changes a learner. A learner should change after a learning process. His thought process should be different than his thought process before learning. And he should be able to do something which he was not able to do before learning. And his whole attitude should change. His communication skills should change. So altogether, he should be a new person after the learning process. And the teacher is only a facilitator for this change of events. That is the modern concept of teaching and learning. And based on this, a teacher should behave differently than we were seeing in yesteryears. So that is what we are going to, that is the training that we are going to impart through this program. And I'm very sure that Dr. Saya Pragasarajan, who is going to start this program. He is from Jipmar, Puducherry, and Jipmar is a center where this medical education program started very early, even years before the Medical Council of India started nodal centers and regional centers. I think more than 25 years earlier. Yes, so he is from such an institute. So I am very sure that our faculty is going to get a very strong, solid knowledge of this learning process, a concept of teaching learning process, and the related topics: effective management of small groups, effective use of technology, and yes, process of student counseling, mentoring, e-portfolio, then assessment methods. Yes, in the coming days, we are going to have discussions on these different topics. And in the absence of our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor K. Mohanan Kundumal, yes, he will be joining us towards the end of this discussion today. I am very happy to extend all the success for this program, and this will be definitely useful for all of you in your career. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining. And over to you, Professor Annie Matthew, for further proceedings of the program. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for the detailed, inspiring, meaningful introduction and felicitation. Dr. Geeta ma'am, shall we start with the session? BC sir may join, and at that time we will go for this
Yes,
inauguration
Dr. Ann.
and inaugural session. Okay, madam. Okay. Okay, now we shall commence the first session of our refresher course, that is concepts of medical education, concept of teaching learning process. Our resource person, Dr. Saya Pragasarajan, is the professor and head of the Department of Medical Education at Jipmar, Puducherry. He was awarded a PhD in Educational Technology, Medical Education, for his pioneering work on information-seeking behavior of higher education teachers with reference to their skills of ICT and techno-pedagogy. He is a fellow of the Foundation for Advancement of International Medical Education and Research and convener of the National Medical Commission Regional Center for Faculty Development. Sir has co-authored 2 books and sir has more than 30 papers to his credit. Sir is an Air India Board awardee, that is Broad Outlook Learner Teacher Award. Currently, sir is guiding 3 PhD scholars in medical and health profession education. With these few words of introduction, I invite Dr. Saya Pragasarajan sir to handle the session, and I hope we will have a wonderful evening time. Over to you, sir, please.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
So, respected Professor C.P. Vijayan, Pro Vice Chancellor of Kerala University of Health Sciences, Professor Geeta Govindarajan, Director of Academic Staff College, and Dr. Annie, Associate Professor of Academic Staff College, my dear participants. I can say enthusiastic participants because right now there are 218 participants are there online. So this is really a very good strength. So my dear participants and all respected other members of this program, the organizers and other members of this program, a very good evening to one and all. So at the outset, I thank the Academic Staff College for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts and experience in the field of medical education. And that too starting with the basic concept with regard to teaching learning process. Right. Now, as our Pro VZ, our Professor C.P. Vijayan introduced, he rightly introduced the terminology teaching, learning, assessment, and how these three things are interrelated and why we call it as a process. Because when you say process, there should be some sort of outcome. So it is the outcome that makes the process effective. I mean, that calls the process, I mean, determines whether the process is effective or not. We conduct a lot of educational programs, but we don't look at the process. We only look at the output. How many number of students enrolled, how many passed, that's all. What in between, what happened that we neglect. As Professor C.P. Vijayan rightly mentioned, what changes this process had brought in to our learners in terms of action, in terms of their creativity, in terms of their thoughts, in terms of their attitude, in terms of their knowledge. So all these things are matters. All these things matters. So this is possible only if you understand the process properly as teachers. Right. With this short this thing, I'll move on to my objectives of this session. So these are the objectives of my presentation. At the end of this presentation, you should be able to distinguish the terms teaching and learning, to explain the factors that influence teaching and learning, to identify appropriate teaching learning strategies with reference to context. So these are the three major objectives I have for this 1.5 hour session. Right. Coming to these three terminologies, I don't know how many of you, most of you may be aware of the term pedagogy and andragogy. And I'm introducing this term. I think this also some of you may be aware, pedagogy. Now, talking about medical education, here these students are adults. When you say adults, they have certain qualities, or I can say they have certain characteristics in general. In layman term, when you say adult, they would have attained certain age, and their thoughts, actions, attitude, their expectations, all these things differs, isn't it? So they are different from the school students. The difference between a school student and a college student, can someone tell me? Can someone unmute your mic, please? Can you just interact with me so that I can also feel comfort, so that, okay, this group is with me. That is the reason why.
Sir, college students are adults.
College students are adults. Good. Okay. Then what about school students? They are not adults. Why they are called as pedagogues? Why they are called? See, the main difference between a pedagogy and andragogy. In pedagogy, everything is decided by the teacher. What to learn, how to learn, when to learn, how it will be assessed. Everything is decided by the school teacher. Okay, it is not student-centric. Everything is teacher-centric. And in andragogy, only what is to be learned is decided by the teacher or by an apex body like NMC or UGC, like that. And how it will be assessed, how they will be assessed. Only these two things are decided by the apex body or by the organization that conducts a program. But how to learn is decided by the learner. Here the learner gets the empowerment. Here is where the learner is empowered to choose how to learn, when to learn, with what to learn. All these freedom is given to the learner. Once having said this, I mean, having possess this kind of empowerment, are we teachers utilizing, leveraging on this what is the autonomy of our learner? That is a big question mark. And coming to the next terminology, that is the pedagogy. Everything is decided by the learner. What to learn, how to learn, when to learn, how to present, how it should be assessed. Everything. Say, for example, our PhD students. So they decide, most 90% of their learning is decided by them. So pedagogy, andragogy, and pedagogy. Why I'm introducing this term is all these days we use the general term pedagogy. It is a general term widely used even for andragogy also. It's a general term. But if you want to specifically talk about the adults, we need to understand the andragogical principles, or I can say the adult learning principles. Okay, now coming to the next term, that is teaching. So usually people say teaching. Can someone throw idea on your understanding about teaching?
Sir, please let me intervene, sir.
Yes, sir, please, yeah.
All of you, please mute your mic so that there is no disturbance. Please mute. When you want to talk, you can unmute and talk. Otherwise, please be mute. Okay, continue, sir, please.
Yes, sir. So let me describe the term teaching in layman's term. So some people say teaching is providing knowledge, sharing experience, sharing thoughts, making the students to learn. Okay, when all these can happen. Good, it's right that people say that it is sharing knowledge, sharing thoughts, actions, making students to learn, making students to develop, all these things happen. So when all these things can happen? Any idea?
According to their need.
Good, according to their need. Thank you, Dr. Tina. Thank you for your response. Good, according to their needs. So needs of the learners is very important. Good, then.
When the environment is conducive.
Very beautiful. The environment, you need a conducive environment. Good. Then only teaching can happen. Good. Then what else? Just go back and think of yourself as the role you play as a teacher. What all you do. Is content alone is enough for a teacher?
No.
No. Then what other things are needed for teaching? When you can call that you have taught, when you have called that the process of teaching has taken place.
Modification, behavioral modification.
Beautiful. Behavior modify. You have to show that some sort of behavior modification has taken place. Good. Good. So having said all these things, let me tell you one thing. When you teach, your teaching has an impact on the learner in terms of stimulation, isn't it? That means you make them to involve in the process of teaching. And you also direct them towards some positive directions, towards some positive knowledge, towards certain content, towards certain context. So it is stimulation, direction, and you also guide them. When they do it correctly, you are reinforcing them. When they do it wrongly, when they do something wrong, you are giving a negative reinforcement. So that is the guidance that you provide for a positive learning. And apart from and at the last, you also encourage them for further learning. So it is stimulation, direction, guidance, and encouragement for further learning. Or in general, I can say that teaching is nothing but creating opportunities for the learners. Very shortly, creating opportunities. What do you mean by opportunity? See, if I go to my class just with a mere lecture or with a PowerPoint, so what opportunity I'm creating for my learner? Just I make them to listen. At the same time, if I go with a multimodal way of teaching, with some lecture, with some hands-on activity, with something to think, with something to solve, with something to discuss, then I'm creating different opportunity for my learner to what? Involve in the process of learning. So that is teaching. Teaching is nothing but, in a nutshell, you can say that as a teacher, you are creating learning, you are creating opportunities for learning. See, this opportunity can be in the form of a question, this opportunity can be in the form of a task, this opportunity can be in the form of a task, or this opportunity can be in the form of a small discussion, problem solving, thinking, okay, reading, writing. So all these are opportunities. But in modern days, what happens? It is slowly the term teaching has led to just a PowerPoint presentation. So teachers think, what am I going to do? How am I going to teach? Tomorrow is my session. I want to prepare my overnight. I sit and prepare my PowerPoint. Next day I go and use this PowerPoint as a 1 hour session. And then I say, okay, I have done. So that is not teaching. So teaching is creating opportunity. So please note down this. Then coming to the learning. So learning, as you all know, as Professor T.P. Vijayan rightly said, it is modification of their behavior. When you say you have taught something, some sort of behavioral changes should have occurred in your learning. The learners should be visibly able to show behavior in terms of some behavior as given in the curriculum. So then you can say that you have taught your learner. So adults, teaching and learning. So adults, they have their own needs, their expectation, and they want to learn, want to know why they want to learn, how they want to learn. All these things, unless you clarify them, you cannot involve them in the process of learning. And teaching is nothing but, as a teacher, we are supposed to create opportunities for our learners. And learning, when you say you have taught, learning should have taken place. The evidence to say that learning has taken place is that behavior modification, that is desirable behavior modification. So any behavior modification cannot be considered as a learning. Okay, it should be a desirable behavior as per the curricular objective. Right. Now let us move on to the next important thing, that is the factors that influences teaching and learning. Can I have some thoughts from the participants regarding this? What are the factors? Already some of the participants have shared their ideas about the factors. So there are 4 key factors that influence teaching and learning. The first factor is the teacher characteristics. So it is the teacher. Teacher is just like a magic wand, and his knowledge, the attitude, the skill, or the technique or strategies that what he has is just like a magic wand in the hand of a teacher. So it is the teacher characteristics that first influences the teaching learning process. Next comes the learner characteristics, the learning environment, the learning methods, and the learning resources. Now let us see one by one. What is teacher characteristics? As a teacher, the first duty of a teacher is to know who their learners are. Even if you go to a shop, they are just asking you to fill up a form and then asking you, sir, what is your mobile number? What is your thing? What is your interest, like that? And even if nowadays you can't become a member in a bank, you cannot open an account in a bank without producing your KYC. You cannot invest in stock market without KYC. You cannot get a PAN card without KYC, because they want to know who you are, know your customer. Similarly, as a teacher, the first duty is to what? Know your learners. That is the first characteristic of a teacher. Some teachers ignore this. They think that it is my duty only to deliver a lecture, and with that my duty is over. No, first know who your learners are. What are they? Who are they? Where are they from? What previous knowledge they have? And what is their interest? What is their attitude? What is their, how creative are they? How intelligent are they? So all these things as a teacher, we should be empowered to know all these things. That is knowing your learners. And content knowledge. You should be well versed in the content that you are going to handle. Some teachers will have a good knowledge of, they may be very resourceful with respect to their knowledge, but they may not know how to put across that knowledge to their learners. So they should be in a position to, they should develop the expert to identify appropriate teaching, learning, and assessment methods so that the appropriate content can be processed properly and delivered across, among the students for desirable outcomes. So knowledge of the content is essential. That is one of the, again, an important characteristic of the teacher, and the knowledge of the pedagogy, that is the science and art of teaching, how to teach, how to process the content, how to put across the content to their learner, what method we can use, what technique we can use, what strategy that can be followed, what assessment will help the teacher to understand whether the student have learned or not. So all these things are essential. Then similarly, and now, as the UGC statement says, that a teacher should be socially motivated, professionally equipped, and technologically sound. These 3 things UGC strongly insists on. And in the new education policy, they say a teacher should be what? Technologically sound. And sound with what? Proper, relevant technology. Suppose you should be, as a teacher, you should know what technological advancements have taken place in educational science as well as in your own discipline, and you should be able to apply those technology for the benefit of the students. And the role to be played. So those are the days. I mean, you would have learned many stories about those days, and where few medical colleges were there in India. At the time of independence, we had only around 12 medical colleges producing only 1,250 students or doctors in a year. But now you have more than 650 medical colleges all over the country, and producing more than 90,000 medical graduates in a year. This is the current scenario. And in those days, teachers were the only resource for the students, and college was the only resource for the students. And that is why those teachers were able to demonstrate as a good role model for their student. But nowadays it is not possible, because you see each and every college have more than 200 students, around minimum 150 to more than 200 students in a college. So it is not possible for teachers, or it is not possible for the system to have more role models. That is why nowadays we have started teaching everything, all soft skills. If you look at the Indian medical graduate, says that we are supposed to produce a 5-star graduate. The 5-star here refers to the first star, clinician, the second star, communicator, the third star, member of a team. He or she should be able to lead a team or should be actively participate as a team member. And the next one is he or she should be, the medical graduate should be a lifelong learner. And finally, he or she should be a professional. So these 5, if you develop all these 5 qualities, then you can say that the Indian medical graduate is a 5-star doctor. Among these 5 skills, five roles that is expected by a Indian medical that are expected from an Indian medical graduate. The first, the role of a clinician and the lifelong learner are considered as hard skills, technical skill. The rest 3 skills are soft skills. See, there are the soft skills are more in these roles. So unless you, in those days, these soft skills were not taught to the student. They were not explicitly given in the curriculum because we had good role models. The environment was conducive because, as I said, the hospital was the only source of information. They happened to get involved with good environment, good role models, good sources. So they were able to become good doctors. But in the mushroom growth of college, with the more number of students, with more as the system needs more doctor population ratio, we wanted to minimize the doctor population ratio. So we need to produce more doctors. So now it has become mandatory that even the soft skills such as the leadership, team and team building, professional behavior, professionalism like ethics, medical legal ethics, compassion, empathy, altruism, all these need to be taught to the learners in a formal. So that is the present situation. So that is why a teacher cannot only play the role of a teacher alone. He is expected to play different roles like a planner, teacher, instructor, assessor, resource creator, mentor, counselor, guide, and coach. All these roles and more than that. So there are a lot of numerous roles a teacher is expected to play as in a medical college. So why I'm telling this is when you say teacher characteristics, it has a large influence on the learning process. That you will come to know how these characteristics can influence the learning process. The coming slides. Then the next thing is the learner's characteristics. We come across students. We don't we are not handling a homogeneous group. So homogeneous group means we are not having students with the same knowledge, same attitude, same level of interest. No. So in a class of 200 or 150, each and every student differs in their intelligence. They differ in their level of motivation. They differ in their attitude towards learning. And they differ in their aptitude towards this subject, their anxiety level, their curiosity level, their readiness to learn, and the previous experience in the subject. So all these things are called as the characteristics, learner's characteristics. But usually as a teacher, we don't find time to understand all these things. Sometimes we largely ignore these things. We don't consider. We simply blame the put the blame on the learners. And because we don't want to take the accountability. So that is one thing. So learners' characteristics such as intelligence, motivation, attitude, aptitude, anxiety, curiosity, readiness to learn, and prior experience, etc., forms part of learners' characteristics. Say, for example, motivation. If you take motivation, a highly motivated learner it is very easy to involve the highly motivated learner in the learning process. So what about a learner who is not highly motivated or optimally motivated? So a teacher should be what? Well versed to understand whether the learner is motivated to learn or not. So for that, he has to frame appropriate method or frame strategies to involve the students by finding ways to motivate the learner. So you would have come across the terms such as extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation is something that is with respect to the reward that the learner will get at the end of the learning process. So the learner will purely take part in the learning process for the expecting a reward. But intrinsic motivation is out of passion towards the subject, out of their duty towards learning, out of their own interest. So that is, so a teacher initially will come across students with extrinsic motivation, but it is the duty of the teacher to make the extrinsically motivated learner to
Please mute your mics. Participants, please mute.
The host can mute the mic of the participants? Yeah. So, it is the responsibility of the teacher to make the extrinsically motivated to convert into intrinsically motivated. That means it is a intrinsically motivated. They will have their own. It is an inward feeling that whenever they hear about the subject, they get intrinsically motivated, just not for the sake of a reward, for the sake of the passion towards the subject, for the sake of the passion care, and for their own self-development. So that is, for example, for motivation. Similarly, attitude. So a predisposition towards learning. What is attitude? Attitude towards learning is nothing but the predisposition towards learning event, learning object, learning matter, whatever it is. It is with respect to matter and event. Learning attitude towards a teacher, attitude towards the object, learning object, attitude towards assessment, attitude. So all these things are part of the attitude. Similarly, aptitude, anxiety, curiosity, readiness to learn. So all these things forms the characteristics, learner's characteristics. As a teacher, at least we should try to understand these characteristics so that we can plan our lesson, we can plan our teaching schedules accordingly. So that is the idea of this particular content. And learning environment. So where learning, so one of the participants said, you need to create, as a teacher, we should be well enough to check whether we are teaching in a conducive learning environment, whether the learning is taking place in a conducive environment. When you say conducive, conducive here refers to a supporting, learner supporting environment. Sometimes the teacher themselves may not be more conducive to the learners. They might have a threatening approach. So it should not be like that. So totally it should be in a non-threatening environment because we are handling adults. So the environment should be conducive with respect to the it should be non-threatening, and it should take place in the appropriate setting. Suppose the content that should be dealt in OPD should be dealt in OPD. Content that should be taught inside the four-walled classroom should be taught in the classroom. Content that are to be taught in a laboratory should be taught in the laboratory, like using OSCE, OSPI or something like that. So learning environment can be an OT or OPD or ward or community or laboratory or a lecture session. So that is called as. So a teacher's responsibility is to make the learning environment more conducive. So that is about learning environment and learning methods and resources. Here, again, a teacher as an expert should be able to identify appropriate media and methods along with the resources to facilitate the learning. So some teachers, just like it, I mean, they will always use they'll stick on to one particular method of teaching, that is mostly with PowerPoint, or just like that, they'll go and give an extemporary lecture. So that students may not like. So as a teacher, you need to present the content, pluralize the content, pluralize your presentation. What do you mean with pluralization of the presentation? Same content in different modes. Say, for example, you have a content for teaching. Take that, at least prepare the content in 3 modes. One as a PowerPoint, one as a video, and one as a hands-on, or one as with a hands-on activity or problem-solving exercise, some kind of thing. So same content, if you present it in multimodal thing, definitely you can reach majority of the students or almost all the students. But most of the time what happens, the teacher goes on with only one method of delivery and he was able to reach only a part of the student, and the rest of the students are left behind in the classroom. So this is one important factor that a teacher should learn. While preparing your lesson plan, see that how you prepare your lesson plan, what method you are going to use for delivering that particular, delivering the chosen content. So that is more important. So teacher's characteristics, teacher learner characteristics, learning environment, learning methods, and learning resources have influenced the teaching and learning. So the effectiveness of teaching learning lies or is influenced by these factors. Now, having said all these things, the factors, that is why in formal education, everything is formal. Why you call medical education as a formal education? Because medical education till date is not allowed as a non-formal or informal education. Except for the patient education, we do it sometimes non-formally or informal. So when you say formal education, you have stipulated norms. So this education should meet certain standards or norms. Say, for example, the age criteria. Say now you have a NEET entrance. The entry level of knowledge is expected. Similarly, you have a set standard. All these standards are aimed at development of the learners. When you say education, the general meaning of education is development, the human development, not only human, humane development. So development is otherwise education. The outcome of any education is aimed at what? Development. So when you say development, it is what? Qualitative. When you say qualitative, it is with respect to knowledge, attitude, and skills. So when you say formal education, medical education is formal education, everything, it has certain norms. In non-formal education, you don't have to meet those norms, because you can relax the age, you can relax the experience, you can relax the content, you can relax the method of teaching, everything, because it is some sort of what? Learner center. We give autonomy for the learners. Only the curriculum is prescribed and the exam is conducted. So for example, distance mode, non-formal education. Say, for example, about say patient safety education, what you see on the banners and posters, it is an informal education. So that doesn't require, it only needs some information. But when you say formal education, say attendance is mandatory. Why you say 90% of the attendance is mandatory? So it is a standard. So you have to meet certain standards. Otherwise, you cannot call that education as formal education. Okay, so nowadays there is a tendency to convert the medical education as a distance mode. Then it cannot be a formal education. So now nowadays there is a tendency to reduce the attendance also. Slowly it is brought down to 70 or 80. Does it mean that if you create 80% of the doctor? No, what happens to that 20%? So you should know the educational implication of why attendance is mandatory, for which content attendance is mandatory, for which contents they may attend and may pass, like that. So must attend, must pass, may attend, must pass, and may attend, may pass. So like that, in formal education, everything is formalized, but we teachers, without lack of, with lack of this, due to lack of awareness about all these things, we don't follow many of these things. So having said this thing, let me introduce the educational spiral, because in the previous slide, you saw the factors influencing teaching. Now, how these factors influence? So as I said that since medical education is a formal education, here also everything is standardized, everything is formalized. So you have a content for 4.5 years, and these contents are divided into different phases, and each content have its own competencies, and all these competencies have their own options. Let's say generally, I don't want to enter into the term competency, but say you have the objectives to be achieved or the outcomes to be achieved. So that forms the basis for the formal education in medical education. So objectives forms, because why you need objectives? Because it is the objective that directive towards the destination. Unless you don't know, you don't determine the destination where you want to reach, so you will be in a confusion. You will not know what to learn, how to assess, and how to certify, isn't it? So that is why objectives are very, very essential. And next comes, how are we going to, what kind of contents will satisfy, will help us to reach these objectives? What kind of content and what teaching learning methods, and what evaluation method will help the system, or will help the the education providers to say that they have reached the objective and they have relevantly certified the individual. So objectives, teaching learning content, teaching learning activities, and evaluation. So once you evaluate, the evaluation is not only for certification, it also informs how effective a program is. So you do some course correction, again you reframe the objectives, and you modify the content. So it is a cyclic process. That is why it is called as educational spiral. In any formal education, this should be more visible. But usually these things remains in the curriculum only. You say that all these are there in the curriculum. So what? Is it being implemented in the classroom with a full spirit and full action, with a full whatever, with word to word thing, whatever that is stated in the curriculum? No. So something is there called as a declared curriculum, or which is there in the document, which will be lying in the university or with the apex body. Something else is taught in the classroom, following different methods and strategies, and something else is assessed. And finally, we say that we have produced a product. So this is what is happening, because there is a lack of awareness about this educational spiral. So once teachers are aware of this, then definitely you can bring in quality, the expected quality into medical education. So with this, let me move on to the next one, that is facilitating learning. Now coming to the point. Okay, sir, now we have...
Dr. Zaya, do you want to show your slides? We are not seeing slides.
Oh, I'm just here. It is moving. My slides are moving here. Where you lost me, ma'am?
Actually, from
Now
the
which slide? Now which slide are you seeing now?
No
we
slide,
have
yeah.
not seen any slides so far.
Oh my goodness.
I thought that there are no slides because all is fast.
No. I am just seeing the slides here.
Uh,
Sorry, again, I'll stop sharing and then resharing.
Okay, please.
Can you see the slide now?
No,
No.
sir. No, sir.
Why? I don't know. What about now, ma'am?
No,
Oh, sorry, you should have told me earlier.
I
I
we
thought that
thought
you
it
people are, I thought you are. One second, ma'am. I'll just close this slide and then. Just a moment, ma'am.
okay. Dr. Annie, please mute everyone.
Yeah, it's muted, sir, madam. They are unmuting and making sound. I cannot do anything for that.
Can you see the slide now?
No, sir.
Oh, Professor Zaya. Maybe we can
Uh,
just continue then as you were. It was
No, I don't know, but it's not that much. It won't be that much effective, no, without slides. Because I'm not going to. I'm only showing because all these are not words. These are all only pictures. Most of these things. So, what to do? I don't know. One second. Can I re-log in? Leave, sign out, and then
yeah.
log in,
Okay.
ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Annie?
Yes, yes.
Is
madam.
that okay? Is the slide visible, ma'am, now?
No. It's okay. I think Dr. Zaya, you can continue without. It's not visible.
But here it says you are sharing your screen share. You are sharing the screen. I can see all this thing. I don't know what is the issue. I'll do one thing. And
So we are very sorry for this short
Sam,
break. Yeah.
sir, if you can send it by mail, I will share it from here. Sai, sir?
I think he has logged out, Dr. Annie. He'll be back.
yes. Now is the screen visible, ma'am?
No.
No, sir. Sir, if you can send it by mail, we shall
Okay.
share it from here.
Okay, ma'am. How about now? No.
No.
No. Okay, then I'll share it to you, ma'am, right now.
So try making the host.
Now I am the host. I have been made as a co-host.
Co-host, yeah.
I've been made as the co-host.
ആനി മാഡം സായ സാറിനെ ഒന്ന്
Host. Host ആക്കിയാലോ. സായ് sir co-host ആക്കും. Co-host ആയിരുന്നല്ലോ, പിന്നെ എങ്ങനെയാ മാറിയേ?
No, ma'am, I have sent the mail to you, ma'am.
Okay.
I have sent to ASC KUHS.
Okay, right.
Okay.
From there, you can just.
So we are very sorry for this technical glitch. We will be commencing immediately. Participants. Yes, ma'am.
I have sent, ma'am. I'm sorry, I should have checked it in the middle, ma'am. Sorry, I didn't ask whether my slides are visible.
Actually, we thought
I-
you were presenting.
No, ma'am.
It's going on very well.
Yeah. No, I was using slide, and here it is moving, and it says that I'm sharing the screen with the participants.
Okay.
I really don't know what happened. Have you received my mail? So let me continue, ma'am.
Yes, I think-
So I was talking about, I don't know where I left.
Educational spiral, sir.
Yeah, educational spiral. Having said that, now we have to think of, now you have some idea about what is education, what is teaching, what is learning, and when, now the next question is, when learning takes place. When learning takes place, that is, how to facilitate learning in medicine. So not in generally how to facilitate learning. There are different ways how you can. I said that teaching is nothing but creating opportunity, and learning is the behavior modification. So how to facilitate behavior modification through teaching. So what process will help the learner to acquire the expected qualities, or what process will help the learner to come out with the desired outcomes? So that is the next question. So with that, we'll first talk about teaching, stages of teaching. When you say stages of teaching, so usually how do you plan your classes? Can I hear from some of the, at least one or two from this group? So how you usually get the topics, and how you plan, and how do you know that you have done a good job? Is there any anyone to share their experience and thoughts? Okay, I'll tell you. Usually in medical colleges, what happens is at the end of every year, they will prepare for the next academic year, and there will be a curriculum booklet, and that will be distributed among the fellow departments, and departments will take a convene a meeting, and they will decide what topic which faculty will deal, which they will take which topic. So they will prepare a scheme of work. So weekly by weekly.
Sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, sir. It is.
Yes, ma'am.
It is shared now. Yeah, it is.
Share.
Showing in, yeah.
No, I'm unable to. I'm not seeing, ma'am. I don't see that.
We are not able to see Dr. Annie.
No, no, ma'am.
Yeah,
We are
yeah.
not able to see.
Coming, madam. Wait. Seeing it?
No.
I think we can just continue, Professor Zaya.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. So that is, so what happens in the department is they sit and then they will prepare a scheme of work for that particular academic year. While preparing that scheme of work, they'll allot topics to the teachers. That's all. With that scheme of work is over. but there will not be any indication how, what topic, whether that topic is a must know topic or nice to, desirable to know or nice to know, or it's a topic that is to be must attend, but it should be must attended by all the participants. Attendance is a must for the topic or not. So what, how much of weightage should be given in the assessment? So all these things should be there in the scheme of work. Usually it will know, these things will not figure. So that is the starting point for the teaching learning process. Once you plan your curriculum, you have to do a mapping of the content and what content will be delivered at which point of time and how it will be delivered, who will deliver, and what will be how it will figure in the assessment, and what are the different methods available for delivering this content, and what outcomes are expected out of this thing. So these things should figure usually in a scheme of work that will not usually be there. So that is why I asked, how do you plan your lesson? So for plan your teaching. So if you plan accordingly, if you plan effectively, if you think that if you want to effectively plan your teaching, there are 3 stages in teaching. One is the pre-teaching stage, which is nothing but the planning a teaching session. It doesn't mean that teaching should happen only during your lecture session. Even before your lecture session, your teaching starts. The learning process starts. You knowing the content and having the schedule in hand, you can very well communicate with your student that this particular session, this particular topic will be held, and this is the content, come prepared for this. Either you can give the content, or you can give a case, or you can give something, some preparatory thing before they come for your session. That is called as pre-teaching. It includes a planning. So planning. There is a saying in English that well planned is half done. So even before your lecture session, you start planning your teaching session, and you start engaging your learner. So that is pre-teaching. So providing them the material, providing them some tasks, giving them some questions, giving them some exercises, so that they come prepared with some question to ask in the class. And in the teaching phase, second phase is teaching phase, pre-teaching. Then the next phase is the teaching phase, where the teacher introduces the lesson. First, the teacher gains the attention. Usually what happens, the teacher will say, okay, this is this class, I'm going to take this one, come on, all of you listen. So the teacher will say blah, 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 then they'll end the class, and with that, the session will be over. But what Gagne, there is something called as Gagne's 9 learning events. It says that the first step in teaching is gaining the attention of your learner. First, gaining the attention. How will you gain the attention of your learner? I've seen many teachers who come with, some teachers come with a newspaper clipping with regard to some health news in the on that particular day. Hundreds of children died due because of cholera. So it's a startling statement. The news showing that news to the students get started. It is a startling statement. Oh, hundreds of children died. Why? Oh, diarrhea. So what is diarrhea? How diarrhea can kill this many children? What could be the reason? So that is the gaining the attention. So there are different ways of gaining the students. Some teachers even come with a bandage in their hand, and then they'll dramatize, act, and then students will ask, sir, what happened? Then from there they will start. So this is something called as the gaining the attention of the learner. Then inform the learner of the objectives. So these are the objectives of the session. Please prepare yourself. So come be attentive. So inform the learners about the objectives. And the next thing is about prior learning. Check the learners about what prior knowledge they have with respect to that particular topic. Then you present the content. Then while presenting the content, you have to assess whether they are following you or not, following the content or not. If they are following, good. So proceed them. If they are not following, provide them guidance on the weaker areas, so that it is, so what it means. So you have to take feedback from these learners, intermittently during your session, and then you can provide guidance, which is otherwise called as the learning guidance. Then you provide feedback, then assess their performance, then to certify them, or you can enhance their retention by giving a homework. So these are called, these steps are called as the Gagne's 9 learning events. So gain attention, inform learners of objectives, then prior learning, that is assessing their prior learning, present your content, provide guidance for learning, how to learn. Usually we don't ask our learners, how are you going to learn this? Have you ever asked this question to your students? We simply teach, but we don't ask, okay, having taught this lesson, having discussed this lesson, how you people are going to learn. So different students will come and tell you different styles of learning. That will help other learners to learn very easily. So usually we don't provide this kind of guidance, and because we don't ask our students, and you give them some practice and provide feedback. If it is a psychomotor skill station, or if it is a hands-on experience learning, you provide feedback based on their performance. Then finally you assess and tell whether they are up to the mark or not, so that will help them to what? Enhance their retention. So ultimate aim of teaching is to what? Retention. Make the learning meaningful so that it leads to what? Retention. What do you mean by meaningful learning? Can someone tell me? Throw light on what is meant by meaningful learning? Annie madam, did you try, ma'am?
No, sir, there is some issues. The
Okay.
technical assistant is also here to help me, but
Okay.
cannot do it.
Okay. Okay, ma'am. So this is the thing. So I was talking about the stages of teaching. That's pre-teaching, teaching. Then comes the third teaching, that is called as the third stage, that is called the post-teaching. So as I said, that our teaching does not end with the lecture alone. It is not a 1 hour duty. So even before it starts, that is the pre-teaching, and during the lecture also you handle engage the learners, and after your lecture also you are supposed to engage your learners. In what way? Give them some home task, give them some work. Again, ask them submit, ask them to write some reflection on what they learned, how they learned, what made them to which points they are clear, which points they are not clear. So this will help them to what? Continue with your learning. Otherwise, they'll come, okay, 9 to 10 physiology session, it is over. So 10 to 11 osmosis, it is over. So that kind of thing alone makes our learner what is mechanical. We don't want mechanical learners. We want meaningful learners. When they become meaningful learners, only if meaningful learning happens in the classroom. When I say meaningful learning, it is nothing but the learner should be able to appreciate their knowledge gained in the classroom. They should be able to tell where they are going to apply this knowledge, how they are going to use this knowledge, and when to be used, when not to be used, on which patient to be used, on which patient it not be used. All these things. So if they are able to come out with such thing, and if they are able to add additional information to the gained knowledge, then that is called as meaningful learning. So if you think meaningful learning to happen, your teaching should be what? Well structured and meaningfully framed. So that is what it is. So stages of learning. So as I told you that facilitating learning in medicine involves lot of frameworks. So this is the first framework, which is called as the stages of teaching. I have shared the PowerPoint with Dr. Anila. Please, Dr. Anila, you can share the PowerPoints with the learners. So stages of teaching. And the next thing is about the learning process. What do you mean by learning process? So when you say learning process, how do we learn? The basic requirement for learning is dash. The first duty of a teacher is to open the sense organs of the learner. We have 5 sense organs. And if you ask the question, how do people learn? What is the science behind learning? It is because of the sense organs. Imagine that all your sense organs are closed. Do you think that you can collect any information? No. So information is the basis for the learning process. So as a teacher, you should help your learners to hone their sensory skills, which is called as what? They should be able to use their sense organs effectively. Seeing, more than seeing is watching. More than watching is observing. More than observing is examining something. So they should be able to use their sense organs appropriately and in a more meaningful way. So context with reference to the context. And the sense of smelling, sense of touching, sense of hearing. More than hearing is listening. More than listening is active listening. So usually most of the students hear and then go. So that is why they don't consider reach that meaningful level of learning. Sometimes they listen, actively listen. So you have to prepare your session, structure your session in such a way that you have to make your learners as active learners. Once you make your learners active learners, they will respond, react, ask questions, analyze, create, synthesize, and solve problem, discuss, question. So all these things will happen once you make them make their listening as active listening. So the sense organs, seeing, touching, smelling, tasting, hearing, all these are sense organs which collect information from your environment. But you can ask me how sense of smell can be used. Yes, it can be used. So the Vedic thing says that the sense of smell, touch, even tasting, people taste some of these fluids, have tasted in those days, and they have come to a conclusion. But nowadays we are not asking our students to taste. That is not correct also. But in the present, but what I mean to say is, sense organs help you to collect information relevantly and process the information to convert it into knowledge. So that starts the learning process. Now, the next thing is, as teachers, so I'm really sorry that without showing these pictures, you will not receive the information, what I say correctly. So Annie ma'am, can you do something? Is something going on? Because I'm really sorry, because these pictures are really will
Sir, the
really help
technician
you.
is with me. He is trying.
Okay. Okay, ma'am. Right. So I'm talking about the learning experience. There is something called as cone of learning experience. Edgar Dale's cone of experience. As teachers, you might be wondering, this is the next framework. So after stages of teaching, this is the next framework. Then the next framework is the learning process about the sense organs. And the next framework is the cone of learning experience, which is otherwise called as Edgar Dale's cone of experience. This cone of experience is a guide for the teachers to identify appropriate teaching learning techniques. I think there is some disturbance.
Please mute your mics.
Yes. So this Edgar Dale's cone of experience will tell you how to choose appropriate media and methods. Suppose there is scientifically it has been proved that 10% of what we read is retained, and 20% of what we hear is retained, and 30% of what we see is stored in our memory, and 50% of what we see and hear is stored in the memory, and 70% of what we say and write, what we do and write, what we analyze, all these things will help us to retain, take the retention to 70%. And 90% of what we do and learn, fully involved in the form of project and other things, will help us to retain, lead to 90% of retention or memory. So this Dale's cone of experience says, if you want your learners to think at a higher order, you have to involve them personally. You have to give them hands-on tasks, give simulation, give simulated experience, give them opportunity to collaborate, give them opportunity to cooperate with others, give them opportunity to discuss, give them opportunity to solve problems, give them opportunity to design questions or frame questions. So framing questions also is a good exercise for the students, because always we teachers think only we are empowered to frame questions. It is not like that. Even students can frame questions so that they feel that they get an opportunity to look back. It is just like a reverse engineering. Okay, by framing question, they come to know what level of understanding they have with respect to the content. Recently, one experiment, IIT Goa did an experiment during the COVID. So during the COVID, they conducted the summative exams, but the question paper was not set by the teachers. So they asked the students to set question paper and then answer for those questions. Naturally, what will happen? Each and every student set their question paper, developed their question paper and answered accordingly. So how it was evaluated, people who have a deeper understanding of knowledge about the subject, they developed questions of higher order level, and students who don't have deeper understanding of the content, they developed a lower understanding. So they not only developed the question, they also wrote the answers for that. So this experiment, you can just browse and see in the net. This was conducted in IIT Goa, and they found that students are very good, well informed about framing questions, especially those students who have deeper understanding about the knowledge. So it's very easy, isn't it? So always we are thinking one side. As teacher, we have to teach. We need to assess. We frame question, assess, we evaluate. No, give students an opportunity and tell them that the more the higher level of questions will get more marks. So based on that only it was assessed. So that was a good experiment. So this Edgar Dale cone of experience will tell you what right resource you can create, what right resource or media and method will help you to provide appropriate learning experience for your learners. That is learning. This is the next framework. And let me move on to the next other framework, that is the learning style framework. So in a class, as I already told you, that we are handling a heterogeneous group, and the learning styles of these learners are different. Some would love to see and learn. Some would love to hear and learn. Some would love to read and write and learn. Some would would love to do and learn. So there are different kinds of learners. So some want to read and write, some want to hear and learn, some want to see and learn, some want to do and learn, some will have multimodal abilities also. They want to read and write, and then they want to hear and write. Some want to see and write and read, see and learn, and some want to do and learn. So learning style framework is another framework that having understanding about the learning style will also help you to understand the learning process. So that is one thing. So there are visual learners, musical or auditory learners, verbal learners, kinesthetic learners, that is do and learn learners, logical learners, social learners, and solitary learners. These are some of the learning styles. So if you can, as a teacher, understand the learning styles of your students, you can easily process the content. Okay, you can easily, as I told you in the beginning, that one content in different modes. So when you will be, how will you know the different modes? Only if you come to know the different learning styles of your learners. So that is the learning style. Now coming to the next framework, that is the learning theories framework. Why a teacher should have knowledge of the learning theories? There are different learning theories in medical education or in general education. I am not going to talk about all those learning theories, but I'm going to talk about the basic three theories. Please note down, the first theory is the cognitivism. So the theory of cognitivism talks about the information processing. So as I earlier mentioned, our sense organs are responsible for collecting the information from our surrounding. So we are surrounded by a lot of information. You are now also you are surrounded by a lot of information. I am talking, someone else is talking in between, and you have a PowerPoint, you have other people, you have a light, you have a fan, you have other. It's a lot of information. But your sense organs, if it focuses only my voice and then my image, my video, then okay, you are focusing appropriately. Suppose if it gets distracted and then focuses other thing, definitely your sense organ will be collecting information through the, from that source only. So cognitivism talks about information, collecting information from relevant source. So as a teacher, you should be able to process and prepare your lesson so that should be convenient for your learners to process the information provided by you. Because it is the information that helps them, that is converted into knowledge by your learners. So you are surrounded by environment. Environment has different stimuli. These stimuli can be in any form, can be in the form of video, object, teacher, voice, information, text, context, anything. Okay, simulation, simulated patient or scenario, anything, it can be anything. So you having this information is not important. How you are going to transact this information to the learner so that they can easily process it or properly process it and convert it into knowledge. Once it is converted into knowledge, you should give them opportunity to retrieve. So once this short-term opportunity is given, that means that you are helping the learner to store it in the short-term memory. And if you provide opportunity to again and again retrieve the information, so that information loss will not be there, it stays in the long-term memory, which is called as the retention. So the ultimate aim of learning is the retention. So learning is what? Learning is minus forgetting. So after learning, whatever that the learner has forgotten, the remaining thing is called as retention. So that is why remembering and forgetting is very important in learning. So knowledge of remembering and forgetting, that I'll come to that slide later on. So in cognitivism theory says that teachers should help the learners to process the information in a smoothly so that it is converted, the information is converted to knowledge and it is taken to the short-term memory and it is taken to the long-term. Here the teacher should note one. Frequently you come across the term called as cognitive load. Even now also I feel that I'm giving you with over cognition, over information overload is there. Because within short span of time, I'm introducing different terms. and some of the participants may feel difficult, which is otherwise called as the cognitive load. As a teacher, you should know within 20 minutes of time. So for a 1 hour session, I should not talk for more than 10 minutes, or the information overload should not exceed more than 12 to 15 minutes. Because you should give time for the learner to process that information. Otherwise, it is called as what? Cognitive load, cognitive overload. So it should not be overloaded or less loaded. It should be optimally loaded. So for this to happen, your information should be what? Well split. Well, simple from complex information should be converted into simple information so that the learners can receive properly, appropriately, easily, smoothly, and then it will be stored in the short-term memory, and with the opportunity, it will go to the long-term memory. So that is called as cognitivism. So cognitivism is all about information processing. Next comes the behaviorism. Behaviorism is about the stimulus response. As a teacher, the teacher himself has stimuli to the student. See, we saw in the very first slide that the teacher's characteristics. A knowledgeable teacher is a stimuli to the student. The more knowledge is to a teacher, student also tend to show their knowledge. This is called as teacher-learner reciprocity. So when this teacher-learner reciprocity becomes more visible, the teacher proves himself that he processes the knowledge in a palatable way, and then put across, transact this to the learner. Then it is that means that the teacher is giving appropriate stimuli. Only if there is an appropriate stimuli, you will get appropriate response from the student. Say, for example, one of the stimuli is questioning. The way the teacher asks question, you get the response. If your question is at lower order, you get only lower order response. If your question is a higher order, you get a higher order response. So that is called as what? Behaviorism. So it is just, these theories are just like the magic wand in the hands of the teacher. So you know how to what? Modify the behavior of the students. If you come late, students will also come late. If you come 5 minutes before, students will also come before you. So that is behaviorism. So the stimuli here is on time, punctuality, regularity. So the video you show, it is a stimuli. If say for the sake of showing some video, if you show, then it cannot be a proper stimuli. So your stimuli should be appropriate to the learners. That is another important thing. So that is about the behaviorism. Behaviorism is about stimuli and then response. So stimuli here, it can be the learning object, it can be the teacher, it can be the question, it can be a scenario. So it should elicit appropriate response or a desirable response from the students. Then the next thing is that is why the learning resources are based on the theory of what? Behaviorism. And constructivism is nothing but you have to leverage on the existing knowledge, what previous knowledge, what existing knowledge the student have with respect to the current topic, the topic that is going to be taught. So unless you know what the students know, you will not know what they want to know, isn't it? So building on the existing knowledge becomes very easy for the teacher. So that is called as construct. You construct new knowledge with the help of the existing knowledge. That is why a teacher should follow a KWL strategy. K refers to know what your learners know. W refers to know what your learners want to know. K for know what your learners know. W for what your learners want to know. And L for check whether your learners have learned or not. So if you know what your learners want to know, so if you know what your learners know, you can easily build on that for the new knowledge. I mean, build a new knowledge on it. It's very easy, isn't it? So otherwise, if you just abruptly give some new knowledge, many of the students may not receive it properly. So constructivism is about that. So these are the three major theories that are frequently used in classrooms, frequently used in education: cognitivism, behaviorism, and constructivism. And repeat, cognitivism is about facilitating information or processing information for retention, long-term retention, and for meaningful learning. Behaviorism is about making the student, engaging the student by using appropriate stimuli so that you get appropriate response. And constructivism is about building new knowledge on the existing knowledge. That can be about social constructivism. Say you give during the small group discussion, you give a case scenario and ask the student to discuss, so that they look at different styles of learning, different sides of thinking styles, different problem solving abilities. So it is that social constructivism help the learner to become a better learner. So that is That is why I said that these three theories are the fundamental theories for medical education. And the next thing is about the skills that you are going to develop. How are you going to develop the skills? When you say skills, it is not only psychomotor skill, it also includes cognitive and affective skills. Cognitive skills including thinking. So how our learning process helps our learners to become better thinkers. So thinking, imagining, dreaming, rational thinking, judging, reasoning, all these things are called as what? Cognitive skills. So cognitive skill includes thinking skills, rational thinking, reasoning, judging, problem solving, and decision making. So, or whether our teaching provides opportunity, as I initially said, create opportunity. So your teaching should create opportunity so that you not only make your learners to what? Acquire knowledge, they also develop their thinking skills, cognitive skills. So reading, reading skill, writing skill, thinking skill, decision-making skill. Writing here refers to creative writing, writing on their own. So these are all the cognitive skills. So again, that influences the learning process. So if you think, say that is, sometimes teachers think, oh, what is there in learning process to understand? I have a PowerPoint, I teach, I have something to say, I just give a lecture. No, if you think about all these things, then you will understand, because it is just like a ocean. Learning process is a big science, so it is not fully explored, and slowly only now the cognitive scientists are slowly exploring these areas nowadays. So cognitive skills. Similarly, the affective skills. So what is their emotional skills? What emotional growth they have, what interpersonal development they have. So your learning should provide opportunity for development of emotional intelligence, emotional growth, understand feelings, interpersonal communication, communication skills. And then inner development. What do you call as inner development? So once they understand this has something to do with their profession, then slowly they acquire that attitude. That is called as inner development. They not only outwardly show that they are doctors, but towards inward also they should develop the qualities of a doctor. So that is called as a compassionate doctor. That is called as a professionalism. So affective skills, and the next skill is the psychomotor skill. That is the physical activities, the manual dexterity that you, the opportunity that you give them to develop the manual dexterity are the psychomotor skills. So activities in classroom leading to experiential learning is psychomotor skill, and leading students to more interaction with peers as well as self-confidence, that will develop the affective skills or the attitude, and then encouraging students to think and solve problems methodically, that will help them to hone their cognitive skills. So these are, this is the next framework, that is developing cognitive, affective, and psychomotor skills. Suppose, are you all with me?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
thank you.
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
thank you,
Yes, sir.
thank
The
you.
IT person is trying, he is contacting somebody else to get some
Okay.
advice. Or there is
That
some
is
technical issues. Are sorry for the inconvenience.
Yeah, that is from your side only, that I can understand. Okay, ma'am, it's not an issue. As long as the participants are not this thing annoyed, I think I can proceed. Anyway, it is really unfortunate. And the next framework is the Bloom's taxonomy of cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domains. I think most of you may be aware of this Bloom's taxonomy. This Bloom's taxonomy helps the teacher in many ways. It helps you in planning your lesson. So in a lesson plan, you can apply the Bloom's taxonomy. You plan, start writing a lesson plan, there you apply the Bloom's taxonomy. Whether you are planning to take your lesson to teach at the remembering level, memory level, or at the understanding level, or at the reflective level. When you say you are teaching at a memory level, it only contains facts and figures. When you say that you are planning your lesson to make your learners to reach the understanding level, that means you are planning to make your learners to answer what and why of the concept. And when you say that you are going to plan a lesson at the reflective level of teaching, if your teaching is going to be at reflective level, that means the learners are going to learn at the reflective level. That means they are able to, they should be able to question, they should be able to analyze, they should be able to create something, they should be able to solve problem. All these things should happen. So that way, this Bloom's taxonomy framework will help teachers to plan their lesson and engage their learners during the classroom, and even assess their learner. So Bloom's taxonomy is just like a Bible for the teachers, where it will help the learners to prepare the lesson, plan the lesson, develop the lesson in the classroom, and then assess the students using the framework. Even in the question paper also, you can, by looking at the question paper, you can say, wow, what type of question paper it is, whether you are helping the assessing the learner at the remembering level or understanding level or application level or evaluation level or analyzing or synthesis level. So Bloom's taxonomy, please note down, it is again a good framework that will help you to understand the learning process. Once if you see all these things, now you will understand the meaning for the learning process. So all these things are essential to make the learning process, teaching learning process effective. So Bloom's taxonomy is there for all the three domains, that is psychomotor domain as well as for the affective domain also. So in psychomotor domain, whenever you show any model, that is why the student should be, the first exposure of the student should be the right role model. Even nowadays we are talking about early clinical exposure. That should not be detrimental to their learning. So their first experience should be the best experience, and it should be with a good role model. So imitation, manipulation, precision, articulation, naturalization, all these things are part of Bloom's taxonomy that deals with the psychomotor domain. And affective domain, again, so attitude cannot be taught, isn't it? Professionalism, to some extent only it can be taught, but mostly it is caught. If I ask you a question whether professionalism can be taught, most of you can say that, no, it cannot be taught, it can only be caught. So to catch professionalism, to get to receive good professional attitude, the organizational climate should be what? Fine-tuned. The organizational climate should be conducive for the learners. So there should be, the organizational climate should have good role models, good environment with good people, and then the learner should be able to judge what is good or what is desirable and what is not desirable. Then they also imbibe those quality and internalize that one. So they receive, respond, value that action, and organize their experience, and finally internalize the valuable things, valuable actions. So that is the hierarchy of the affective domain. So Bloom's taxonomy, please note down, again, that is again an important framework to understand teaching learning process. So let us move on to the next framework. So even in the Bloom's taxonomy also, you can, even if you think the teacher think if he want to make his learner a higher order thinker, he can do that. If he thinks that he himself don't have that ability to think at higher level, then definitely he will only help their learners to think at the lower order. So that is not going to help the passion cap. Okay, so always the teacher should aim his or her teaching at the reflective level. Next framework is the framework for clinical competence. You would have heard about the Miller's pyramid. So here, this Miller's pyramid will help us to understand how to understand the teaching learning process with reference to the Miller's pyramid. So here, it starts with the knowledge, that is what the learner knows, that is from novice to expert. Okay, so if the learner is able to recall the facts and figures, then we can say, okay, the learner is knowledgeable. And if the learner is able to explain certain case presentations and interpret cases, then give explanation for why it is like that, how it is like that, when it is like that, when it is not like that, then we can say that the learner is able to say, he has reached the know-serve level. So at know-serve level, the learner is able to only come out with facts and figures. At know-serve level, the learner should be able to explain what and why. And at the shows level, that is the next higher level, the learner should be able to demonstrate on a simulated environment or on a simulated patient or on simulators or mannequins with reference to a certain assessment standards. That is called as the demonstration. Okay, so otherwise it's called as the shows level. Then the last level takes place in the real patient or in real scenario, which is otherwise called as the performance level. So here, under the direct observation of superiors or the seniors, the student should be able to perform certain clinical tasks on a patient or under the supervision of a senior. So that is it. So here in Miller's pyramid, Miller's pyramid is again an important framework that will help you to understand the teaching learning process. So if you understand what is nose level, what is know-serve level, what is shows level, and what is desk level, accordingly you can prepare your teaching, accordingly, you can prepare the teaching learning experience for your learners. And coming to the next framework of the principles of psychomotor learning. So usually I have seen teachers doing the psychomotor skill teaching that see one, do one kind of thing. But again, having said it is a formal education, again, in psychomotor learning also, we have certain principles. So whenever you teach psychomotor skill, there is a framework called as the 5-step approach, which says that conceptualization. Before teaching any psychomotor skill, give them the concept, give them the cognitive base, give them the knowledge of that particular concept. What is that concept about? When to do, on which patient it should be done, when it should not be done, what are the measurements and other things involved in this concept. So all these things, say for example, if you want to teach your students the tying a neck collar, so you have to tell them what is a neck collar, why it is, where it is used, on which patient it should be used, and when it should be used, what is the different sizes available, on whom it should not be used. All these things becomes the conceptualization, providing the knowledge. And the visualization part is the silent demo or a silent video about that particular demonstration. Why it is silent? Here in the conceptualization, you are feeding the brain, the cognitive part. In the visualization, you are feeding the eyes, because eyes are very, very important, because whenever you get stuck in any one of the step in future, when you are get a chance to demonstrate, you will be able to recall only visually what happened in those that particular day when my teacher demonstrated. So first step, second step, third step, then it will be easy for you to recall. So visualization is one thing. It is called a step-by-step cognitive cognition. It is based on the cognitive science, step-by-step cognition. So at conceptualization, you are feeding the brain. The visualization, you are feeding the eyes. In verbalization, next step is the verbalization. Here, you are seeing as well as you are doing the demo by verbalizing. Telling step 1 involves this one, step 2 this one, step 3 this one, like that. And verbalization involves 2 steps. One is the verbalization by the master or the instructor. And in the next stage, verbalization by the student and the demonstration by the teacher. So that is verbalization. So you have fed the brain, you have fed the eyes, you have said one thing, and then you have fed the ears by hearing. The students use their sense organ of hearing, and then now you are going to use the hands, touch and then learn. Now the student will get a chance to demonstrate by saying the steps. Then during this stage, the teacher reinforces the correct behavior. If the behavior is correct, the teacher reinforces. And then if it is a positive behavior, the teacher gives positive reinforcement. If it is a negative movement, the teacher gives a negative reinforcement, saying that not correct or no, like that, by using body gestures like that. And so reinforcement and correction is during the course. And at the end of the procedure, the teacher gives feedback or debriefs what happened, what went on well, or something like that. So this is called as the 5-step approach. And skill mastery and skill autonomy is not part of it, because at college level, we only look at the competency. We certify only at we only certify the competence, not the mastery level. Okay, so conceptualization, visualization, verbalization, practice, reinforcement, and correction with feedback. So see one, say one, do one. See one, hear one, say one, and then do one with reinforcement and correction is the principles of psychomotor learning. Then comes the experiential learning cycle. Having understood the framework of the psychomotor learning, the next framework is the whole experiential learning cycle. Forget about the names. So it is experiential learning cycle. In this experiential learning cycle, please plan a concrete experience for your learner. Whether it is with the patient, or whether it is with the mannequin, or whether it is with some other object, or whether it is with the community visit, or whatever it is. So please plan a concrete experience with appropriate objectives, and ask your learners to reflect on the observation. So you ask them what happened during their learning experience. So this is about reviewing or reflecting on the experience by the students. So now the learners will conclude their learning experience. Third stage, the first stage is the providing the concrete experience to the learner. And the second stage is the reflective observation by the learner. Here the learner will say what they learned, why they learned, how they learned, what they did not able to do perfectly, or they were not able to observe perfectly. All this they'll be sharing. And in the third stage, they will be concluding their experience, saying that this is what is their learning experience. This is what is. So if it matches with the objectives, it's well and good. If it does not matches with the objectives, again you have to what? Give them another chance for the experimentation. So then again active experimentation takes place. Then you give them concrete experience. Then ask them to reflect. Ask them to conclude. So it is just like a cycle. So this Kolb's learning, experiential learning cycle is again an important framework for the teachers to process, to understand the teaching learning process. See, in each and every framework, you should be, by now you should be able to appreciate why this particular, in what way this particular framework can contribute to the teacher to frame, to plan their lesson, to engage their learners and to assess their learner and take a call on their learner about their learner. So that is how you should, that is why I'm telling framework by framework. If I just say that this is what is the learning process, that is, I don't think that you will be able to get that. So you should be able to appreciate in what way this framework is applicable or will help a teacher to understand the teaching learning process and in what way they can use it for their teaching learning sessions. Then comes the next framework, that is the competency matrix framework. So whenever you handle any learner, engage any learner, you can very well, your learning experience should help the learner to understand their position, even for giving feedback. So how will you give feedback? Usually we will give feedback, a generic feedback. What went on well, what the learner should continue to do, what the learner should immediately stop doing, and what the learner should start doing something. This is a generic feedback, and there are different models of feedback. But usually, as a teacher, usually we give general feedback, or we give general this thing. But it should not be like that. That means you have not understood the teaching learning process properly. If you really want to give, assess your learners for their competency and give feedback appropriately, you should know the framework of the competency matrix. The competency matrix says that there are 4 stages. One is, whenever you expose your learner to a particular learning experience, the learner should, first of all, the first stage, the learner should be able to understand at what level they are incompetent. So they are unconsciously competent all these days. By providing a learning experience, the learner should come to know, oh, I have been thinking that I know many things, but after this learning event or even experience, now I understand I'm totally unconscious about this particular thing. I'm totally not aware. Now I am aware that I don't know about this particular skill. I'm not good in performing this particular skill. That is called as unconsciously competent. So performing this skill becomes, the learner is not, conscious about their incompetence. That is unconscious competence. So next stage, having known that I'm incompetent in this thing, now I'm conscious about my incompetence. So consciously, I know that I'm competent in this thing and not competent in this thing. Okay, first I'm unconscious about what I don't know. Now, consciously, I know what I don't know. The third stage, I become an advanced beginner. That is, I consciously know that I am advancing well, I am progressing well. And finally, after repeated practice, then unconsciously, I become a competent person. Okay, so unconsciously incompetent, consciously incompetent, consciously competent, and unconsciously competent. So this unconsciously competent is nothing but the reaching the mastery level, expert level. Okay, so why I mean to say this, suppose if you want to give feedback, so I said that we are going to deal with only heterogeneous group. We are dealing with heterogeneous group. So we cannot give a same feedback to all the students. So you know the level of the student, what level of feedback should be given. If he is unconsciously incompetent, then you should be able to tell, oh, you are at this level. Now you should be conscious that you are incompetent and for this particular skill, please see what action plan you have for that. And you give your feedback with respect to that. Now, suppose you come across a learner who is consciously incompetent, then you give them to reach the next level, that is consciously competent level. So your immediate focus should be to help the learner to reach the next level. If you come across unconsciously incompetent, your aim should be to help the learner to reach what? Consciously incompetent level. If you come across the learner with consciously incompetent, your aim should be what? Help the learner to reach the consciously competent level. If you come across a learner with consciously competent level, your aim should be, your feedback should be focused at making the learner what? Unconsciously incompetent. That will automatically happen. So what I mean to say here is, this framework will help you to understand the competency level of the learners and give appropriate feedback for them for the overall development. And next framework is the questioning framework. So many teachers use questioning meaningfully or sometimes just for the sake of asking question. Okay, but if you follow the framework of questioning, because questioning is a vital tool, and if you follow the technique of questioning, because it is the questioning that drives the learning. I mean, that acts as a great stimuli in the classroom. So Professor Vijayan was talking about the classroom management in his speech, isn't it? So one of the important vital tool for classroom management is the questioning techniques. As a teacher, we should develop the skill of questioning. So there are once people asked Winston Churchill, so how he has become a good speaker, how he is a good speaker in the parliament. He said it is very simple. So reporter asked him how he is speaking like that. So he said it is very simple. I have some 6 servants with me. So they said 6 servants. What do you mean? He said, yes, I have 6 servants. What, which, when, where, how, and why, all these things. So whenever any topic is given to me, I start asking questions with this. So with that, I'm able to manage people and then reporters or any situation. So why I'm telling all this, why I mentioned this anecdote is that questioning is such a vital tool that makes that you can easily make your learner gain the attention of the learner, involve the learner, make them to think, assess their prior learning, and then make them to take them to the higher order thing. And it is called as a high impact teaching skill. Questioning skill is called as HITS, high impact teaching skill. But usually we maintain we only take our learners to the lower order, engage our learners only at the lower order thing. So from lower order lots, you have to take our learners to the higher order. To reach the hearts, from lots to hearts, you need to apply HITS. That's what we usually say. From lots to hearts, you need to apply the HITS. That is high impact teaching skill, which is nothing but the coach. There are many high impact teaching skills are there. Scenario based education, high impact teaching skill. So similarly, questioning is also a vital tool. So because questioning helps in a scenario-based teaching, questioning drives the scenario-based teaching because it allows the scenario to unfold properly. The way you are sequence the question, that should help the learner to unfold the scenario in a meaningful way. And next, it encourages interaction. It allows participation. It gains and maintains attention of the learners. No one can escape because it generates evidence for learning. You know which student answered which question, what is his level, isn't it? So you are generating evidence for learning and assess levels of the understanding. So by asking a higher level question, you can understand what is the understanding, group understanding, the level of the group's understanding about the concept. So I'll assess the levels of understanding, increase the levels of understanding. If you come across students answering all the questions, so improve the level of the understanding, improve the level of the questioning. So increases level of understanding, increases learning from each other. And that is from instructor and among students. See, students are seeing different types of questioning styles and different thinking styles, how other student answering style, thinking style. So all these things will promote a healthy and then a competitive environment inside the class. So that is the reason why we call questioning as a vital tool, and it promotes higher order thinking. It's coming to the next framework of teaching learning process, that is the maxims of teaching. When you say maxims of teaching, it is nothing but the principles of teaching. So when a teacher plans his lesson or interacts with the students, he should not all of a sudden or with the one instant, he cannot talk a higher level of information to the student. So always move from known to unknown. As we saw in the constructivist approach, from known to unknown. Then the next thing is from simple to complex. Always give the simple information, then proceed to a complex information. The next one is provide opportunity for analysis so that the students will automatically reach the creation stage, synthesis stage. So instead of that, some teachers will ask the students to create, synthesize. No. If you provide opportunity for reflection, that will lead to analysis, that will automatically lead to synthesis. So known to unknown, from simple to complex, from analysis to synthesis, and from specific to general. So say specific example, then you take them to a generalization. Okay, so it is something like inductive and deductive. If you say some rule and then give some example, then it is deductive. Okay, so these rules, this is the rule and this is an example. So this is deductive approach. And if you give example and ask them to frame rules for the examples, then it becomes inductive. So specific to general and empirical to rational. From numerical to, they should be able to rationalize. Okay, this is the number for this population, and they should be able to rationalize the reason behind that. Then induction to deduction, from inductive reasoning to the deductive reasoning. That is from example to rule and from rule to example. So psychological to logical. So always, because the four foundations make the education more, effective. One is the psychological foundation. First foundation is the philosophical foundation. The philosophy we believe in. Different colleges believe in different philosophy. If you look at the vision and mission statement of the different colleges or universities or the apex bodies, they have their own vision and mission, which is nothing but the philosophy they believe in. So the philosophical foundation. Next one is the psychological foundation. That is why in the beginning I said teachers' characteristics and the learners' characteristics, psychological foundation. So first you should understand who your learners are, what are their needs, fulfill their basic needs, then go to the next need. If your students are hungry, you cannot teach them. So that is psychological. Third need is the sociological need. Some learners would want to learn in a solitary environment. Some learners want to learn in a social environment. Sociological foundation. The next foundation is the technological foundation. So use appropriate and selective technology to make your learners more engaging learners and to take your learning to the meaningful stage. That is, so philosophical, psychological, sociological, and technological foundations are the four pillars of the medical education. So here the next maxim says that psychological to logical. So arrange the contents in a logical sequence. First take care of their psychological needs, then arrange the content in a logical sequence. So next thing is about the actual to representative. So what is the actual and what could be the representative? So actual is this one and this is the representative of that population. The actual is this is the human heart. The representative is the mammalian heart, any animal heart, so that you can explain them, so that you can dissect and then show them. So, but the actual human heart, you cannot dissect and show. The actual to representative. So near to far. First, always show the near example and take them to the farthest thing. Some people know, if you ask who are your leaders, they'll tell Abdul Kalam, this and that, Gandhiji and all. They will leave out their father and mother. First, let them appreciate who are the leaders next to them. Similarly, so in learning also this happens. Always give example that is close to them. Then ask them about the far example. Ask them the far anecdotes or ask them. So near to far. So these are all the maxims of teaching. And the last one is from whole to part and part to whole. So sometimes you have to give the whole content and then ask the students to understand partly. Sometimes you have to split the whole content into parts, different parts, and make them to join those parts to have a holistic understanding. So maxims of teaching is another framework that teachers should be aware of to understand the process, teaching learning process. Next comes the framework of the facilitation learning, that is the teacher-centered approach, where, see, nowadays nobody appreciates lecture, but lecture is also a very, very fine art of teaching. Lecture is called as the fine art of teaching. Because now this fine art of teaching is vanishing slowly because people blame on the strength of the students don't understand. Because the art of lecture has vanished. In those days, as I say, teacher was the only resource. The lecture was the mostly applied method in a large classroom. In those days itself, if you look at certain colleges, at those days itself, they had 150 students. Colleges like Tanjore Medical College and all, they had that time itself, they had 150 students in the lecture hall. So they had mesmerizing teachers who can mesmerize them, who acts, who sings, who draws, who draw and teach, who act and teach, who sing and teach, who involve students. So their lectures, though it was didactic lectures, it was more interactive. So you need, even if you plan for a lecture session, let it be a facilitating kind of learning. So your lecture should facilitate things. So for that to happen, your PowerPoint should be interactive. You need to be an interactive teacher. You need to involve your learners, though they may be more in number. So some teachers blame on the number of the students. But as an educator, I would say that please don't consider the number of students as a drawback. Please consider that you have many brains to work. In those days, in a classroom, only 50 or 100 brains. Nowadays, you have 200 brains to work for you. Okay, only thing is you have to plan accordingly how you are going to engage your learners in a lecture session. So now there are a lot of technology available to make your PowerPoint interactive. There is a software called as Poll Everywhere, which you can incorporate online quiz in the PowerPoint itself, make your learners use their mobile to vote. There is another software called as Boxword. You can vote, you can conduct quiz, you can conduct a cloud wording. Many of these things can happen in the classroom so that your learners will not get bored, or they will not be out of the contact with the teacher in a lecture session. So that is another framework. And the next framework is the scenario-based teaching and learning. So you need to, so some teachers, for the sake of using scenario, they use cases and everything. But how effectively they are using the scenario, if they are aware of the principles of scenario-based teaching and learning, definitely they can make their teaching learning process effectively. So scenario-based teaching is based on the principles of situated learning theory. This is the framework for scenario-based. What do you mean by situated learning theory? So here, learning takes place in the context in which it is going to be used. So I'm giving a case, not to just check their knowledge. So the ultimate aim of using a case is to make the learner to use it in a particular context. Because I cannot bring the real scenario here. I cannot take my learner to the real scenario. But in the case, I can bring the context here. Isn't it? So I don't want a patient, I don't want a scenario, I don't want OT, I don't want OPD, I don't want community, anything, nothing. I really don't want any, even a simulated patient. If I frame a case properly, more effectively, that will really bring in a real life situation inside the classroom. So the case should follow the situated learning theory principles. So it should have a good starting with the data about the patient, the age, all these things. And it is the question that finally makes the learner to think appropriately in a scenario-based teaching. You would have seen scenario-based teaching. What treatment strategies you will follow? What treatment options are available? How will you know that this patient is a shock? How will you determine the diagnosis of this patient? So it is the question that makes the student to think appropriately. So scenario-based teaching, the framework is situated learning theory. So here, the learning, it says that learning best takes place in the context in which it is going to be used. So that is the framework that you should remember for scenario-based teaching to understand the teaching learning process behind the scenario-based teaching. So there are different, generally scenario-based teaching includes case-based learning and problem-based learning. I don't want to enter into the deep discussion in the interest of time. So case-based learning, as you all know, that there will be proper direction. The students will know what they are going to learn, and it will be a clear-cut case of any particular disease or particular presentation. But in the problem-based learning, it starts with the problem, and there will not be proper direction because the students have to learn, explore, and then identify the problem, and finally they will say, this is what we learn. So that is the difference between a case-based learning and the problem-based learning, because all these are a part of what all these comes under scenario-based teaching, following the principles of situated learning theory. Next comes the next framework, that is simulation-based learning. So nowadays people are just like that using simulation-based learning. Okay, so can you use simulation for all? Okay, so is it essential to use simulation for all? So are we really teaching our learners to handle human beings or to handle toys or dolls or mannequins? Isn't it? Or is there any evidence to say that simulation-based learning are effective so that our learners have proved effective in real life scenarios, in real situation? So it is still a big question mark, but still you can use scenario-based learning provided if your objectives are clear and if the learning experience is appropriately provided to the learner, the experiential learning is appropriately given to the learner, then the simulation-based learning can be more effective. Okay, so here again, the process is with respect to what is the objective of your session and how you are going to provide the learning experience and how you are going to evaluate under simulated situation. So it is only just to give the learner a deliberate practice in order to for the sake of patient safety, isn't it? So in those days, the two students had a good opportunity because more number of students. Now we cannot provide opportunity for the learners. That is why the role of simulation-based learning has come up. But still, you need to think twice or thrice So while framing a simulation-based learning, because that simulation-based learning should not be detrimental to the learners when they go for real practice. So that is again another framework with regard to simulation-based learning. So you should first of all understand the learner level and the what learning, how you are going to frame learning objectives for the learners, and then learning the operational thing, how they are going to perform, and how you will assess against which standard you will be assessing that. So all these things need to be clearly stated in a simulation-based learning environment. So next framework is the social media and the video lectures framework. That is the e-learning framework. So here, I think most of you would have experienced this during the COVID. So fortunately or unfortunately, COVID has provided us a good opportunity for all the teachers, irrespective of their knowledge, attitude, and experience. They involved in e-learning. And now, initially, there was a lot of hue and cry about this thing, and people just like that used all media, I mean, social media and other softwares, and they experimented many things. But now many of the teachers are well versed in using the social media and other technology effectively for e-learning. So that framework will help you. So can we put all contents on e-learning? Which are the content that can be done? How to engage our learners through e-learning? Now, whether e-learning can be part of the formal education, because in formal education we say that attendance is mandatory and distance learning is, there is nothing mentioned in distance learning. But after COVID, we have to what? We have to revisit our formal education, and e-learning should be part of this formal education and not as regular thing, but for engaging the learners out of the classroom hours. That is for pre-teaching and for post-teaching. So in the initial framework, we discussed about pre-teaching, teaching, and post-teaching. So for pre-teaching, you can use the e-learning strategies, and for post-teaching and assessment, for e-portfolio, for generating evidence of learning, for all these things, we can use e-learning framework. Okay, so still we would strongly recommend that during the teaching phase, try to engage your learners in a live scenario, in real situation, so that attitude development automatically takes place. So you can easily foster attitude development, professionalism among your learners. So that is about e-learning framework. And the next framework is the peer-assisted learning. Here, identify good, effective learners, effective students who can contribute to the learning of other students, and prepare them as instructor, train them, and then make use of them for training their fellow members. That is about the peer learning framework. And the team-based learning, here you prepare the learners for pre-class preparation and then assess their readiness for the next day. So I think I'll skip this team-based learning because it is too much. And two more frameworks are left. That is observational learning. I think it is self-explanatory. In the initial slides, I said that observational learning, the first instance, the role models the learners come across should be appropriate role models, so that by seeing the best role models, you don't have to teach them teach them much. So these role models will help the learners to acquire or imbibe good qualities and develop as a good professional. So that is the observational learning framework. So that is again part of teaching learning process. And the next thing is the flipped classroom. Here you are engaging the learners before they come. You convert your video lecture, you convert your PowerPoint into a video lecture, share it with your participants before the class. So they watch the video and come prepared for your live session. So they discuss with the other members, ask questions, clarify things, and then they go back and then they attend some quiz or then develop a new concept and then prepare and come again. You give them a new lecture. So it is flipped classroom. Here, the whole class, the classroom activity is divided into, it is flipped into 2 or 3. That is before, during, and after. So that is how you are flipping the classroom. Again, that is one more framework that will help you to understand the teaching learning process. And reflective learning is another one. That is what, because I said the last one, the teacher should aim for reflective teaching. Teach at the reflective level, and so that the learners reach the reflective learning level. So what is the reflective learning level? So once if you make your learners to analyze, think, solve, then it is called as what reflective learning. So whenever any learning event is opportunity is given, the learners should be able to ask what went on, what happened, what learning experience happened. So this is what is happened. So with that, they should not stop. I said your lecture should not stop with your class, with your lecture session. It should continue beyond that. So you should help your learners to ask what question. Okay, today I have learned this. How am I going to use this learning experience? Where am I going to use? When am I going to use? How am I going to improve on this knowledge? So that is the so what. So what happened because of this experience? So what? How am I going to use, where and how, and what I did not understand? How am I going to improve on this? All those things. So what next? So I am going to, this is about the action plan. What next is the action plan. So action plan is nothing but, so what advanced knowledge I'm looking for, how I will be implementing it when the when the next opportunity is given to me. So that is the reflective learning framework. So what happened, so what, and what next. So if you make your learners to ask these three questions, you can visibly see the teaching learning process, making the teaching learning was more visible. So not only that, all these frameworks will help you to generate evidence for your students' learning. That is why I'm again and again repeatedly telling it in the form of frameworks. So once if you are aware of these frameworks, you will know how to apply this, and you will know how to collect information out of this process and then say that your learners have learned. That is that you will be able to say that you have, you will be able to generate valid evidence to say that your learners have learned or not. Okay, and finally about the feedback, providing feedback, that is again framework for teaching learning process. So as I have already discussed about the competence framework where feedback, how to give feedback based on the competence feedback. So usually we follow different models, and there is a model called a framework called as the Pendleton rules, which says that first you give opportunity for your learner to share what happened, what went on well. Then you compliment. Then you ask your learner where they need improvement, the areas that needs improvement. Then you compliment. The third one is you say that you ask your learner to summarize their total learning experience. Then you compliment. And finally, you ask your learner what action plan they have for improve their learning. This is called as feed forward. So nowadays, without this action plan or feed forward, no feedback is complete. Otherwise, your feedback session is incomplete. So first give opportunity for the learner to come out and then say what went on well, you compliment, then ask them to say what could be done better or what are the areas for improvement. Then as a teacher, you compliment, then ask them to summarize. Then you conclude. If they have left any point, you can add and then you can conclude. Then finally you ask them, how are you going to improve? What action plan you have? What action you want to take on this? So if you ask this question, then otherwise no, the feedback session will end. Okay, I did demonstrated something. My teacher observed me. Based on the observation, is giving feedback. That's all. So there is no scope for taking it forward for further improvement. So this feed forward is again another framework as part of feedback. That is the action plan as feed forward. So that is again a teaching learning process. A framework that will help you to understand the teaching learning process. And the next one is the TPACK. TPACK is nothing but a teacher. This framework will have TPACK, T-P-A-C-K. It is a framework because teaching, T here refers to the technological, P refers to pedagogical, C refers to content, and then K refers to knowledge. Okay, so TPACK refers to techno-pedagogical content knowledge framework. What is this framework? Technological, pedagogical content knowledge. Usually we see teachers aware of the content they wanted to teach, and they will have a good knowledge of the content. But they will not have the knowledge, pedagogical knowledge. So content alone is not enough, isn't it? So content is first thing, and the pedagogical knowledge of dealing with that content, that is the TPACK, TP. Then technological knowledge of how to transact the content using the technology. So technological content knowledge, pedagogical knowledge, technological knowledge. These three knowledge, just like a Venn diagram. Imagine that you have a Venn diagram. First Venn diagram is the content knowledge. Second circle is the pedagogical knowledge. And third one is the technological knowledge. And the intersection points are called as, the first one is pedagogical content knowledge. So you know the content, and you know the pedagogy. So the intersection is how to, what teaching learning method I will be, appropriate learning method I will be using to transact the content. That is the pedagogical content knowledge. So pedagogical content knowledge alone is not enough. Then what technology I am going to build in to process this content and then transact this content. So that intersection is called as the techno-pedagogical knowledge. And the next intersection is the technological content knowledge. So totally this is called as the TPAC framework. So techno-pedagogical content knowledge framework. Please note down this one. So if this is there in your mind, this framework, then you will understand, oh, the teaching learning, the process, the teaching learning process becomes more visible. Okay, so I know as a teacher, I should be familiar with the content, I should be familiar with the pedagogy, I should be familiar with the how I'm going to use the technology and how I'm going to inbuild the content along with the technology with the evaluation the other system. So that is the TPAC knowledge content. And finally, not just one slide, not just one slide, one more slide is that is final, not just before the final slide. Forgetting, knowledge of forgetting and remembering. So imagine that God has given us a gift of remembering as well as forgetting. Remembering alone will not help an individual. And at the same time, if you totally forget also, it will remember. So as a teacher, you should understand what factors promote high retention. At the same time, you should also understand when forgetting happens. If you don't use an information for a longer period, it becomes decayed and then information decay happens. And if you get misinformation also, forgetting happens. Okay, if there is ambiguity also, forgetting happens. So you should understand the factors that promote remembering and factors that minimizes forgetting. So that is another framework. So remembering and forgetting, please browse and see, because no teacher talks about the forgetting and remembering concept or the framework. So remembering and forgetting is another thing that helps you to understand the teaching learning process. If you are able to understand how remembering process, definitely you can make your teaching learning process visible. And as a teacher, if you can understand when students forget, when students remember, okay, why they should forget. If some new learning to happen, they should forget and learn some old one, isn't it? So learning to learn, learning to unlearn, and learning to relearn. So all these three things are important. So understanding about remembering and forgetting is also essential for a teacher to understand the teaching learning process. So having said all these things, so I'm going to conclude. So if you look back and then see all these frameworks, starting from teacher characteristic, learner characteristic, teaching resources, learning environment, learning methods, learning styles, thinking styles, cognitive development, affective development, psychomotor skill development, learning theories, behaviorism, cognitivism, constructivism, and then the case-based learning, all different frameworks. We have dealt with different frameworks. And finally, if you say that your curriculum says these are the outcomes, it says that what kind of doctor this curriculum will be producing. That is the output, isn't it? Outcome. So if I want to produce this kind of doctor, what content or the learning experience will make the individual with so-and-so entry behavior to become a doctor of that kind as stated in the curriculum. So what kind of doctor I want to produce, what learning experience will help the teacher to produce that kind of thing, and what inputs are required, isn't it? So think there is an approach called as the last approach, because it is this approach that brings everything together, which is nothing but the system approach to medical education, or the system theory or the system approach to medical education. Here it says that you need to first of all determine what kind of doctor you want. So and so quality, already it says that 5-star doctor, all these things. And this is the process that is going to help me to what? Mold an individual with this entry behavior. So output is nothing but the exit behavior. So input is the entry behavior. Entry behavior here is the +2 with neat mark. This is entry behavior. And we are getting this kind of student. And what kind of content, what kind of teaching learning process will help the student to become the expected doctor with so-and-so outcomes. Are we doing this? So when you say educational outcome, there are 3 outcomes. One is the output. Output in medical education, this is the final statement for this, this thing. Output is nothing but the number of graduates you produce. Say I admit 1,000 students and 999 students pass. That is only an output. I don't know what kind of doctors are there. But the curriculum says so-and-so doctor with so-and-so quality is supposed to, this curriculum is supposed to produce so-and-so doctor, so-and-so quality. How do you ensure that where is the evidence for that? We only have evidence to say that we have produced this many doctors. It is only an output. If you say outcome, it is in terms of behavioral terms. That is, as stated in the curriculum. The curriculum says these are the learning outcomes, these are the 5 roles to be played, these are the competencies, and all these should be what? Visibly seen in a doctor that we produce, isn't it? So that is the outcome. So output is mere number and outcome is in terms of behavioral terms. And the third outcome is the impact on the society. That is the real outcome. What these kind of, how are these going, how are these, I mean, what impact these doctors are going to have, what kind of impact these doctors are going to impact on the society. That how to assess. So that is the third level of thing. So if you think like that, suppose whenever you teach a student, is my teaching an impactful teaching, whether I'm aimed at only output or outcome or impact. So you, as a teacher, you should always think of impact level. That is, I'm going to teach this, I'm handling this group of students, and when they become doctor, they should not be detrimental to the society. They should be what? More constructive or productive in the society. They should help towards make a save patient or help towards contributing to the betterment of the healthcare. That is the impact level of teaching. So with this, I have, I think these are some of the frameworks. There are also a lot of other frameworks and theories, which I don't want because I thought for a 1.5 or 2 hour session, this is more than enough. I may have used a lot of jargons or terminologies, which many people may not be aware, or some would have thought that it is too much for them. Sorry for that. Because I have to do justice for the opportunity given to me. So with this, if there are any questions, I'll be happy to take some questions.
Thank you, sir. Now the participants, please listen. Before going to the question answer session, there are some few points to make you remember. That is, kindly stay mute during all the sessions. The same Zoom link can be used for the upcoming sessions, and also rename your device as your name for attendance purpose. Now the platform is open for question answer session. The participants, you can clarify your doubts either by directly asking or by posting in the chat box.
Chat is disabled, ma'am. Chat is disabled.
Yeah, the chat is disabled.
Disabled.
So I think anyone of the delegates who have questions may please unmute yourself one by one and ask your questions. Please unmute yourself only if you want to ask a question. So actually, dear participants, we will make sure that all the PowerPoint slides of Dr. Zaya Pragasarajan will be sent to your email ID. Dr. Annie will make arrangements for the PowerPoint slides to be sent to you. We apologize for the technical glitches which prevented the slides from being visible. But actually, Dr. Zaya was such a wonderful speaker that for quite some time we thought that he was not intending to show slides at all. And we were so carried away by the presentation. So it is really wonderful. And it actually shows us that you can deliver a message or a class. You can take a wonderful class without having PowerPoint slides. This was a wonderful demonstration of that. So you're not sharing your, making the PowerPoint share your power. You are the hero of the whole presentation. And it is you who the students looking at and observing and learning from. So that is another way that all our teachers in yesteryears, before the computers were available, laptops were available in the classrooms, that was how things used to be. And yeah, so it still is possible to do justice without a PowerPoint presentation. This was a wonderful demonstration of that. But do not worry, your PowerPoint slides will be sent to you. And one example that I really liked was of how you said the Goa IIT, was it? Goa IIT had made the students, assess the students by assessing the level of the questions prepared by the students. That was really an eye-opener for us, and possibly we could try that out in our classes as well. It would be very, very interesting. So, Dr. Annie, any comments?
Yes, madam. Okay, for the
Then-
participants.
Ma'am, if there are no questions, I'll summarize.
Okay, sir. Okay, I think there are no questions.
hello.
Nothing is in the chat
Hello,
box
sir.
also.
Yeah, someone wants to. Dr. Ajmal. Yes, sir.
Rajmal.
Sir, I'm working as a lecturer in a College of Nursing at Calicut district. So, and I was from graduated from post graduation was from Jikmar only, sir.
Okay. Good.
And one
When
small
was,
doubt, like
When was when?
it was last 2021, sir, 1921.
21. Oh,
MSc.
I think I would have attended my sessions.
Yeah. I
Okay.
was your student also, sir.
Okay.
From there.
Okay.
Sir, actually, I want to clarify a small doubt. Like PPT nowadays, we are mostly depending on PPT. So,
Okay.
how can we learn that? How we should use it in effectively? Whether is there any website or anything, any aids are available
No, there are
to learn how to?
No, there are lot of literature available on Professor Google has lot of literature. If you just type making effective PowerPoint presentation or tips for effective PowerPoint, you'll get. But my suggestion is that you can make PowerPoints, but make it interactive. Make it very less information loaded. Suppose I think I am really unfortunate that I could not show my PowerPoint. I don't have any text in my PowerPoint in today's presentation. All these were only pictures with frameworks and with little words. That's all. Most of the thing I was just talking because I only need an indication to talk. Otherwise, I was just using the PowerPoint, the pictures or the frameworks given in the PowerPoint, the charts given in the PowerPoint. So, but there are also other ways of using the PowerPoint. There are some softwares called, as I mentioned, there is a software called as Poll Everywhere. It's a very, very handy, user-friendly software which you can incorporate it, embed with your PowerPoint, Word PowerPoint, and then you can add questions. Only thing is your students should be permitted to carry iPhone with them, so that with Android phone they can answer within no minutes you can. So there is you don't have to spend much time to assess your student, ask question, all those things. So you can see that how you can make your PowerPoints with video, with pictures, with little words, and without overburdening with more animations and all. So make it short and simple. We use the formula called as KISS. Keep it short and simple. So that is one mantra that we always advocate in NTTC. Other than that, there is also an article by Harden, which is called as Death by PowerPoint. The name of the article is Death by PowerPoint. Please, all of you should go through that article, which talks about how can you make PowerPoint presentation, at the same time, how can you kill your student with PowerPoint also. Okay, so it talks about the slide swiping stage. Mostly people come with hundreds of slides and then they switch off the light, and then conveniently the learners will sleep, and the end of the 100th slide, the speaker will switch on the light and then see students sleeping, isn't it? That state is called as the slide swipe state. So that article also talks about that one. So if you just go through that article, Death by PowerPoint, you will come to know how to make effective PowerPoint session, and when to use, when not to use, and how it can badly influence your learner, and how it can have a good influence on your learner.
Okay,
That's
sir. Thank you, sir.
also, they talk about PowerPoint poisoning, isn't
Yes,
it?
PowerPoint pass. Yes, ma'am. Death by PowerPoint.
Sir, can you suggest some name of some books to learn such knowledge?
There are a lot of medical education books available, sir, on net. It is available on Amazon also. There is one foreign edition by Tim Swamby. Understanding Medical Education, Fundamentals of Medical Education by Tim Swami. So that is just like a Bible, whatever aspect, whatever I taught, whatever I discussed now, I took from that book. It's a very good book. Sometimes you will get paperback edition also. You can try it from Amazon.
Sir, once more, the name of that author?
Understanding Medical Education by Tim Swami, Timswanwick, Tim Swami. Swami.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. All the best.
Any more doubts?
Sir, I am Dr. Remya. I am assistant professor at Government ED Medical College, Alappuzha.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello, sir. Sir, my doubt is in a class with 200 or more students, how can we make our sessions interactive?
This is what I mentioned in my lecture, that you don't have to interact with your learner only in the class. You can start the interaction beforehand. One way is giving them some assignment, asking them to come prepare for the assignment or answer for a question or a solution for a problem or give a case scenario and come with their critical points, critical learning points. Okay, so each and provide opportunity for each and every student so that what critical points they have with that scenario. So that way, you will ensure that all students will have a point for discussion, and then you can randomly ask the students. So what critical points you have out of the scenario, that like that one thing. Second thing is about there are mechanism to keep the student on track. There is a traffic system that there are many ways. I'm just suggesting one way. Give 3 color cards to a student, that is red, yellow, and green color card. At every 10 minutes, you ask them, you give them some indications to know whether they have understood whatever you are teaching fully. If they have understood, most of them will show green color. And if you see most of them showing yellow color, okay, they are okay, you can continue. If you see most of them showing the red color card, you have to stop and then go back and then start teaching. That is one way. Then you can engage them by asking questions. And there are techniques like think, pair, and share, jigsaw methods, and then say, for example, round table questioning, circular questioning. These kinds of method will definitely help you to engage your learners actively in the classroom. Especially this think, pair, share. You don't have to shuffle the student, group them and all. From this, wherever they are seated, from there itself, they can you can engage them by using this technique that is called as think, pair, share. Please browse and see how this method can be used in your classroom. So as I said, interactive PowerPoints can be used, and case scenarios can be used, problem solving exercises can be used, all these things. Only thing is, you should keep them alive, keep them things. One of the main crises in medical education is the engaging the learner. So if you are a skilled teacher, definitely we can engage the learner in a more productive manner.
Yeah, Dr. Jaya, we have used those cards that you said.
Okay, very good.
Yellow, green, and red. It was
yeah.
very nice to use
Very
them.
nice.
Among even UGs and PGs, we have tried. And at the end of the session, we also used it. I've also used it for a quiz. Like
Okay.
if they say
Formative assessment.
yes, they say the green,
Yes.
and no, they say they show the red card if they don't agree with the statement.
Yeah.
And if they are not sure, then they show the yellow card. So it also helps you to know how many of them are not awake. So
Yes.
that is an added
Yes.
advantage.
Yeah.
So
And the current generation student, they want challenging situations. So they want their teachers to ask some pertinent question or some critical question. So like that kind of thing there. Even while questioning also, teachers only ask the recall type of question usually. And they also don't find time also, because it has to come as part and as an habit in the classroom. So if you start asking questions, probing questions or this thing, definitely you can engage your learners.
Dr. Annie?
Yes, sir. Yes, madam. Shall we
Thank
wind
you.
up?
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, we will go to the vote of thanks. Respected
Ma'am,
resource-
let me summarize, ma'am. First, I'll summarize it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity, and I think I was trying to do some. What is it? When I was assigned this topic, I thought that I will. There are different ways of doing this session. I thought that if I introduce the framers, then it will be easy for the participants to remember the framework. That is why I thought that I'll make this session in the form of introducing frameworks, so that they can easily understand the teaching learning process behind each framework. So to summarize, teaching is creating opportunity for learning, and learning is permanent modification of behavior that we bring in to a learner. And to make the teaching learning process more effective, teachers should have proper understanding of the characteristics of learners, their own characteristics, and the knowledge about the teaching learning environment and resources, and how to facilitate learning is very essential for a teacher. And frameworks for teaching and learning will ensure transfer of contents effectively. So with this, I thank all the participants for their patient listening, and for and that too for a 2-hour session. It is very difficult to stay back and then show their attention towards me. So once again, thank the organizers, Professor C.P. Vijayan, our Pro Vice Chancellor, Vice Chancellor, Professor Geeta Govindarajan, and Professor Annie Ma'am. So I thank all the participants once again, and thanks for the opportunity. So, and every time I get this type of opportunity, I also learn many things from the organizers as well as from the participants. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we will go to the vote of thanks. That is respected resource person, Dr. Sai Prakash sir, Dr. Professor Mohan Kundumel, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. Professor C.P. Vijayan, Pro Vice Chancellor, all the resource persons, Dr. Professor Geeta Govind, Professor in charge, all the eminent personalities and distinguished participants. First of all, I express my deepest sense of gratitude to Dr. Sai Prakash sir for sharing the valuable knowledge, practical ideas on concept of medical education, teaching, learning process in a very simple way. I hope this session will help us all to become better teachers and better learners in our profession based on output, outcome, and impact. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for the excellent sessions.
Thank you.
Now, I would thank Dr. Professor Mohan Kundumel sir for his guidance and support in all our ventures. Thank you, sir, in his absence anyway. Next, I thank Dr. Professor C.P. Vijayan sir for the meaningful introduction and felicitation. Thank you, sir. Dr. Professor Geeta Govind, our professor in charge, is always with us for guiding us. Thank you, madam. Thank you so much. Next, I thank all the eminent resource persons and distinguished participants for the wholehearted cooperation to attend this session patiently. Once again, I thank each and every person on my own behalf and on behalf of Academic Staff College. Thank you all. Good night.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Good night. Good night.
Thank you,
All the
ma'am.
best.
Thank you, ma'am.
All the best.
Thank you,
Thank you,
ma'am.
ma'am. Good night.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you,
Thank you, ma'am. Good night.
Thank you, ma'am. Good night.
Thank you, ma'am. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, madam.
Excuse me, ma'am. Hello. Hello, ma'am.
Hello. Parnolu. Hello.
Ma'am, my name is Desh. I'm Desha Varghese K, but it has shown in the participant list as Baiju Desha. I was
please
present
correct.
throughout the
For
class,
the
ma'am.
upcoming sessions, madam, please correct it and enter
Okay,
in
madam.
your name. then only we will be getting your
Okay, ma'am.
attendance. Otherwise, it will be difficult to send the e-certificate also.
Okay, ma'am. So
Okay.
today I was present, ma'am. It was
No, that's
it was
okay. That's
shown.
okay. Next session onwards, you enter with your correct name.
Okay, ma'am. I'm Desha Varghese.
Okay. Okay.
Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you, ma'am.
I will try to remember your name if any problem comes. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. Desha.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
ശൈലജി കേക്കണ്ട?
യെസ്, പറഞ്ഞോ പറഞ്ഞോ.
ഇറക്കാണോ നോക്കിക്കോട്ടെ, ഷെയർ ചെയ്ത് വന്നാ?
ഇല്ലല്ലോ, ഇല്ല, വന്നില്ല.
ഓഫ് ചെയ്ത് നോക്കേണ്ടി വരും. റീസ്റ്റാർട്ട് ചെയ്ത്.
അതുപോലെ കോ-ഹോസ്റ്റുമാർക്ക് നമുക്ക് മെസ്സേജ് അയക്കാം, പക്ഷെ പാർട്ടിസിപ്പൻസിന് മെസ്സേജ് അയക്കാൻ പറ്റുന്നില്ല എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞല്ലോ. അതെന്താ പറ്റില്ല? അവർക്ക് ചാറ്റ് ബോക്സ് ഉണ്ടായില്ല.
എന്റെ പൊന്നു ഷാലു, ഇന്ന് ലാലിനെ ഇവിടെ പിടിച്ചു നിർത്തുന്നത് നന്നായി, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഞാൻ എത്ര പേരുടെ തെറി കേൾക്കേണ്ടി വന്നേനെ.
സത്യം വേണ്ട, പക്ഷെ ഇത് നമ്മുടെ കുഴപ്പമില്ല. എന്തോ സംഭവിച്ചു, എന്താന്ന് മനസ്സിലാവണില്ല.
ഇപ്പൊ വരണ്ടോ നോക്കിക്കോട്ടോ.
ഓക്കെ,
വന്നോ?
ഇല്ല ഇല്ല.
പറ്റിയിട്ടുണ്ട്. ഷെയറിംഗ് ഉണ്ടോ വലുതും ഇല്ലല്ലോ?
ഇല്ല, ഒന്നും സംഭവിക്കുന്നില്ല.
സമയത്ത് പറയേണ്ടി വരും. ചേച്ചി അവിടുന്ന് എന്തെങ്കിലും ഷെയർ ചെയ്തി ഒന്ന്?
ഇപ്പൊ ഷെയർ ചെയ്യാം. ഷെയർ ഡോക്യുമെന്റ്. PPT അൺസപ്പോർട്ടഡ് ആണ്. ഇനി ഞാൻ നോക്കട്ടെ, PDF ഷെയർ ചെയ്യാം. PDF ഇത് ഷെയർ ആയിട്ടുണ്ട്, കാണാൻ പറ്റുമോ? ഇല്ല. ഓക്കെ, അപ്പൊ എനിക്ക് മാത്രമേ ഷെയർ ആവുന്നുള്ളൂ.
ഞങ്ങള് ചെയ്യണത് ഞങ്ങൾക്കും, അവരാര് ചെയ്യണത് അവരാണ്.
ഇതെല്ലാവരുടെ കൈ കൊടുത്തിട്ട് അവനോട് സാറ് ക്ലാസ് എടുക്കുന്നു തോണ്ടിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നു.
ഇല്ല ഇറങ്ങണ്. ശരി അവരെടുത്ത് പറഞ്ഞു. ഇല്ല ഇറങ്ങാൻ പോണു. ഒരു ഓട്ടോ ഓട്ടോ വിളിച്ചോ മാഡത്തിനോടൊക്കാം.
ഫ്രണ്ടിലേക്ക് വരാം, ഞങ്ങൾ ഇറങ്ങുവാ. ഇത് പ്രശ്നമായതുകൊണ്ട് ഇപ്പൊ ചെക്ക് ചെയ്തോണ്ടിരിക്കുക, എന്താ പ്രശ്നമൊക്കെ ആയിരുന്നു. ഇല്ല ഓഫ് ചെയ്ത് ഇറങ്ങിയിട്ടില്ല, എല്ലാരും ഇവിടെ ഇരിക്കുന്നു ചെക്ക് ചെയ്തോണ്ട്. ഇറങ്ങുവാ ഇപ്പൊ തന്നെ ഇറങ്ങുവാ, ഓഫ് ചെയ്ത് ഇറങ്ങുവാ. ചോദിക്കേ ഇറങ്ങുവാ.
നാളെ വന്നിട്ട് ഒരു സൂം സ്റ്റാർട്ട് ചെയ്തിട്ട് ഒന്ന് ഷെയർ ചെയ്ത് നോക്കിയാലോ?
അങ്ങനെ നോക്കാം.
നാളെ ഞാൻ ഉണ്ടാവില്ല, ഇല്ല. നാളെ ഞാൻ തിരുവനന്തപുരം പോവാ. ഇന്ന് രാത്രി പോവും 1:30. നാളെ രാത്രി വരുള്ളൂ. നാളെ ഒന്ന് ഓഫീസ് ടൈമിൽ ഒന്ന് നോക്കണേ.
നോക്കാം നാളെ.
ഇന്നിപ്പോ എന്നാ ഓക്കെ. മാഡത്തെ സേഫ് ആയിട്ട് ഓട്ടോയിൽ കയറ്റി വിടണം കേട്ടോ. അയ്യോ ഓടിപ്പോക്കോ. മാഡത്തിന് കഴിക്കാൻ വല്ലതും ഉണ്ടോ? അയ്യോ
ഗുഡ് നൈറ്റ്.
ഗുഡ് നൈറ്റ്.
ട്രാവലിംഗ് എല്ലാം സേഫ് ആയിട്ടിരിക്കട്ടെ.
ഓക്കെ മാഡം. Okay, bye bye.
God bless you.